The Galactic Empire was a monolithic force, spanning thousands of star systems and wielding technology so advanced that it seemed like magic. Its rulers, a race of cold, calculating beings, looked down on other civilizations with disdain. For centuries, they dominated the galaxy with ruthless efficiency, subjugating weaker species and bending them to their will. When Earth was discovered, the Empire barely registered it as a threat. Humanity was a latecomer to the galactic stage, armed with what the Empire considered primitive weapons and clumsy spacecraft. Diplomatic overtures from Earth were met with thinly veiled scorn. The Empire's emissaries arrived on Earth not to negotiate, but to mock. In grandiose speeches, they declared the superiority of their race, scoffing at humanity's achievements. Earth was labeled as a backwater planet, its people barely above the level of apes. These taunts were broadcast across the galactic networks, sparking laughter from other species who had long since submitted to the Empire's might. For a time, Earth tried to avoid conflict, hoping diplomacy could preserve peace. Representatives proposed alliances, offered resources, and even pleaded for coexistence. But the Empire wasn't interested in dialogue. To them, Earth was an amusing distraction, a minor annoyance that could be crushed if it dared to step out of line. That opportunity came when humans began colonizing nearby systems. Though these colonies posed no threat, the Empire claimed the expansion violated their territorial boundaries. Without warning, the Empire launched an attack on humanity's fledgling settlements. Gigantic warships descended upon the colonies, obliterating defenses with energy weapons far beyond human comprehension. Earth's forces, though valiant, were outmatched. Soldiers fought bravely, but their weapons were ineffective against the Empire's impenetrable shields. Entire cities were vaporized in moments, leaving only smoldering craters. Survivors were herded into camps, their resistance treated as an amusing sideshow. The Empire's propaganda machine broadcast the conquest as a warning. Footage of human defeat played on endless loops, accompanied by commentary mocking their barbaric tactics and quaint technology. To the Empire, the campaign wasn't just a military victory, it was a demonstration of their unassailable power. The galaxy watched, many species too terrified or too beaten down to offer aid. Back on Earth, the mood was grim. Governments convened emergency sessions, military leaders scrambled to devise countermeasures, and scientists worked frantically to find a technological edge. But the Empire's overwhelming superiority left humanity with few options. People whispered of hope, but it seemed fragile, like a candle flickering in a storm. Rumors began circulating among Earth's forces about a soldier, an elite Marine whose reputation bordered on legend. This individual, it was said, had faced impossible odds before and emerged victorious. Stories of daring missions and unmatched skill spread like wildfire. Though many dismissed these tales as desperate exaggerations, they planted a seed of hope. As humanity reeled from one defeat after another, the whispers grew louder. In the midst of despair, there was a name spoken in hushed tones, a name that would soon become a rallying cry. Somewhere in the shadows, amidst the rubble of humanity's broken defenses, a lone warrior prepared to step onto the battlefield. The Empire had mocked Earth's forces, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson. Underestimating humanity could be their greatest mistake. The Marine arrived in silence, unnoticed by the massive Imperial forces that dominated the battlefield. He wasn't part of the Earth's regular forces. He was a one-man mission, a wild card sent when all other options had failed. His name wasn't widely known. Even among Earth's soldiers, he was more myth than man. Those who had heard of him knew one thing. Where this Marine went, victories followed. The colony he landed on was a wasteland. Once a thriving settlement, it now lay in ruins, its buildings reduced to rubble by the Empire's relentless bombardment. Scorched earth stretched for miles, littered with the remains of humanity's failed resistance. Imperial patrols moved through the area in mechanical precision, scanning for survivors. To them, this planet was already conquered. To him, it was a battlefield. He moved with the precision of a predator, his every step calculated. The Empire's forces were overwhelming in number, but they lacked flexibility. Their protocols were rigid, their tactics predictable. He exploited this from the start. Using the terrain to his advantage, he avoided detection and identified weak points in their perimeter. The Marine didn't attack recklessly. Every strike was deliberate, designed to sow confusion and maximize damage. His first target was a communications relay, a towering structure guarded by drones and alien infantry. It was the nerve center for the Empire's operations in the area, coordinating their movements and monitoring the planet's surface. Infiltrating the facility required more than brute force. It demanded cunning. He used makeshift distractions, setting off small explosions to draw the guards away. When the path was clear, he struck with precision, neutralizing the remaining sentries before planting charges on the relay's core systems. When the explosion lit up the sky, the Empire's forces scrambled. They were unprepared for such audacity. To them, Earth's forces were scattered and broken. This kind of resistance didn't fit their expectations. The Marine used their confusion to his advantage, striking another outpost before they could regroup. His tactics were unconventional, a blend of guerrilla warfare and strategic sabotage. Each success chipped away at the Empire's veneer of invincibility. As word of his actions spread, surviving Earth forces began to rally. Soldiers who had been demoralized and on the brink of surrender found renewed purpose. They adapted to his methods, learning to fight smart instead of relying on brute strength. Skirmishes that had once been one-sided massacres became opportunities to outwit the enemy. The Marine wasn't just fighting a war, he was teaching humanity how to resist. The Empire's commanders grew increasingly frustrated. They were accustomed to crushing resistance with overwhelming force, but this lone human was dismantling their operations piece by piece. They deployed more troops, increased patrols, and tightened their security. None of it worked. The Marine was always one step ahead, predicting their moves and countering them with surgical precision. His victories weren't just physical, they were psychological. The Empire's soldiers, once so confident in their supremacy, began to hesitate. Fear spread through their ranks, a fear they'd never experienced before. They weren't fighting a mindless horde. They were up against an enemy who understood their weaknesses and exploited them mercilessly. The Marines' actions sparked something deeper than hope among Earth's forces. They began to see the Empire not as an unbeatable giant, but as a flawed machine. This realization changed the nature of the conflict. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about defiance. Humanity wasn't going to bow down, not while this Marine was still in the fight. With each victory, the Marine's legend grew. To the Empire, he was a ghost, a shadow that struck without warning and vanished before they could respond. To humanity, he was a symbol of resistance, proof that they could fight back and win. The Empire had mocked Earth's forces, but now they were beginning to understand the cost of their arrogance. This wasn't just a skirmish, it was the beginning of a revolution. The Marines' victories were no longer isolated incidents. They were the spark igniting a full-scale rebellion. Across the colonies, Earth's scattered forces began to emulate his tactics, turning the Empire's own overconfidence into a weapon. Where once humanity fought blindly, now they moved with calculated precision. The Marines' methods were passed along like a secret language. Strike fast, exploit weaknesses, and never fight on the Empire's terms. The Empire's rigid command structure was its greatest strength, but also its most glaring vulnerability. Their soldiers operated like cogs in a machine, reliant on central orders and unable to adapt to chaotic, decentralized tactics. The Marine understood this, using it to systematically dismantle their operations. Supply lines were ambushed, critical outposts sabotaged, and high-ranking commanders eliminated. Each loss chipped away at the Empire's grip, creating fractures in their seemingly invincible facade. The Marines' most significant breakthrough came during a reconnaissance mission deep within enemy territory. He uncovered a critical flaw in the Empire's shield technology, a vulnerability hidden in their arrogance. Their shields, while impervious to direct assaults, were susceptible to certain electromagnetic pulses that could disrupt their integrity. Armed with this knowledge, the Marine crafted a new strategy, one that turned the Empire's greatest strength into a liability. The first test of this discovery came during an ambush on an armored convoy. Using scavenged equipment and ingenuity, the Marine constructed an improvised EMP device. When the convoy entered the kill zone, the device was triggered, rendering the shields useless. In moments, what had once been impenetrable armor became exposed and vulnerable. Earth's forces, armed with conventional weapons, obliterated the convoy in a decisive victory. News of this breakthrough spread like wildfire. For the first time, humanity had a tangible edge over the Empire. The Marine shared the EMP design with other units, enabling Earth's forces to strike back with unprecedented effectiveness. Battles that once ended in despair now turned into triumphs. Imperial warships, once untouchable in orbit, were suddenly vulnerable to coordinated ground attacks. The Empire's response was swift and brutal. They deployed their elite units, veterans of countless campaigns who were the pinnacle of their military machine. These forces were sent with one goal: to eliminate the Marine and crush the resistance before it could gain further momentum. But even these elites found themselves unprepared for the human soldier they faced. The clashes between the Marine and the Empire's elite were nothing short of legendary. Each encounter pushed both sides to their limits, with the Empire's precision meeting the Marine's adaptability. But where their elites relied on superior technology and discipline, the Marine fought with resourcefulness and an uncanny ability to anticipate their moves. He turned their strengths against them, using the terrain, weather, and even their own weapons to outmaneuver them. With every defeat, the Empire's frustration grew. Their forces, accustomed to easy victories, were demoralized by their inability to capture or kill this single human. Rumors began to circulate among their ranks about the Marine's seeming invincibility. To the Empire's soldiers, he was no longer just a man. He was a force of nature, an unstoppable enemy who defied their every expectation. Back on Earth, the tide was visibly turning. The Marines' actions had given humanity more than just victories. They had given them belief. Earth's forces were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. Commanders adapted to the new reality, coordinating strikes that exploited the Empire's weaknesses. Civilians joined the effort, providing intelligence, supplies, and even direct support to the resistance. The Marine's influence extended far beyond the battlefield. His defiance inspired other oppressed species to rise up against the Empire. Small rebellions began to ignite across the galaxy, each one weakening the Empire's hold. What had once been a tightly controlled regime was now stretched thin, fighting battles on multiple fronts. The Empire, once so sure of its dominance, found itself facing a new reality. This wasn't a minor insurrection, it was a movement, one that threatened the very foundation of their rule. And at the heart of it all was the Marine, a symbol of humanity's resilience and determination. He had turned the tide of the war, proving that even the mightiest empire could fall when faced with unwavering resistance. The Marine's fight was far from over, but his victories had changed everything. Humanity was no longer a footnote in the Empire's history. They were a force to be reckoned with, capable of defying the odds and rewriting the story of the galaxy. The Empire had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. The final battle was inevitable, a confrontation that would decide not only the fate of Earth but the course of the galaxy. The Empire, desperate to reclaim control, amassed a fleet unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of ships descended upon the last human stronghold, their weapons bristling with destructive potential. To them, this was a show of force to crush resistance once and for all. To humanity, it was the ultimate test of their resolve. The Marine stood at the center of Earth's defenses, coordinating the efforts of soldiers, engineers, and civilians who had rallied under his banner. His actions had brought them this far, but this battle was unlike any before. The Empire was throwing everything they had into the assault, determined to erase the humiliation they had suffered at the hands of this lone warrior. The odds were impossibly stacked, but the Marine had faced worse and won. The battle began with a relentless bombardment, the Empire's fleet raining destruction from orbit. Earth's forces, armed with newly developed EMP weapons, launched counterattacks that disrupted the enemy's precision. For every Imperial warship that fell, another seemed to take its place. The sky burned with fire, and the ground trembled under the weight of the conflict. In the chaos, the Marine led a strike team on a mission to disable the Empire's flagship, a massive dreadnought that served as the nerve center for the entire fleet. The plan was audacious, bordering on impossible. The ship was heavily guarded, its defenses impenetrable to conventional tactics. But the Marine had never relied on convention. He saw vulnerabilities where others saw obstacles, crafting a plan that leveraged the Empire's overconfidence against them. The infiltration was a masterpiece of strategy and execution. Using the Empire's rigid protocols to his advantage, the Marine and his team bypassed layers of security, moving like shadows through the colossal vessel. Along the way, they encountered fierce resistance, but the Marines' leadership kept the team focused and unshaken. Every step brought them closer to their target, the command center where the Empire's most powerful leaders directed the battle. When the confrontation finally came, it was nothing short of epic. The Marine faced the Empire's supreme commander, a being whose reputation was as fearsome as the Marines' own. Their clash was a battle of wills and wits, a microcosm of the larger war. The commander fought with the precision and discipline of the Empire, while the Marine countered with creativity, adaptability, and sheer determination. In the end, it was the human spirit, unpredictable and indomitable, that prevailed. With the flagship's command center neutralized, the tide of the battle shifted dramatically. Earth's forces, inspired by the Marines' success, launched a coordinated assault that exploited the chaos among the Empire's ranks. One by one, Imperial ships fell or retreated, their once unbreakable formation crumbling under the weight of humanity's defiance. The Empire's withdrawal was not orderly or strategic. It was a desperate attempt to escape total annihilation. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy witnessed the Empire in retreat, its forces battered and broken by a species they had once considered beneath notice. The sight was a galvanizing moment, not just for humanity, but for countless others who had suffered under the Empire's rule. In the aftermath, the Marine disappeared as quietly as he had arrived. There were no speeches, no parades, no declarations of victory. He left behind a legacy that would echo across the stars, a legacy of courage, resilience, and the refusal to submit. His actions had reshaped the galaxy, proving that even the mightiest empire could be brought low by those who refused to give up. Humanity's victory was more than just a military triumph. It was a statement of their place in the galaxy, a declaration that they were not to be underestimated or dismissed. The Galactic Assembly, once a stage for the Empire's dominance, now saw a new power rising. Earth's representatives walked into that chamber not as supplicants, but as equals. The Marine's story became legend, told and retold by those who had witnessed the war. To some, he was a hero, to others, a myth. But to humanity, he was a reminder of what they were capable of, a symbol of their strength, ingenuity, and unyielding spirit. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would Earth. The Empire had mocked humanity, but in the end, it was their arrogance that brought them to their knees.